There's a popular joke on big data that everybody talks about, and I'm not sure if somebody's already told you this, given that I'm probably the fifth or sixth speaker on a topic as wide as big data. Big data is something that everybody wants to talk about today, and there are very few people who actually know how to do it. And everybody thinks that somebody else is doing, so they pretend that they're doing it. So I don't know how much of big data I really know. Some of you probably know more than me. So you'll have to pardon me in that spaces. And especially this topic where we're going to talk about what's IBM's point of view on big data. I'm going to keep it slightly non-technical. I'm going to try and see what is big data really and what problems does it really solve and what problems are we solving in the market today. Having said that, I just want to understand the audience a little bit. How many of you are startups here or entrepreneurs here? Okay, we don't have any startups and entrepreneurs. Oh, you have one. Okay. And how many of you are practitioners, analysts, data scientists? We have a few. And how many of you are pure techies, coders? Okay. And how many of you are business leaders who run your own businesses? Okay. So we have a kind of a spread audience, right? Now, what is that one common thing amongst all of us? Now, include sellers and technology vendors like IBM and Amazon, which was here. Is there one common thread amongst all of us today here? Somebody wants to give me an answer. Is there any common thread amongst all of us here today? Sorry? You're looking for value from data, okay? Any other views? I know it's difficult after lunch and somebody's going to come and told you that he's not going to talk about technology if you're a techie and you're going to push back. The way I see it is, all of us here are looking for who our next customer is in some sense or the other, right? You're a startup, you're looking at who your next customer is, right? You run your own business, you want to know who your next customer is. At the end of the day, why does IBM or Amazon or any of the companies which was here go speak in sessions like this? They're looking for who our next customer is, right? When IBM speaks to our clients, that's exactly the question clients ask us today. How can IBM help us identify the next client? Do I really know about that client? If I know, what do I know about that client? Do I know how does he behave? Do I know how does he make his decisions? And if I have to know that, what should I do? Retailers today want to know your consumers better. Insurance agents want to know the insured better. Hospitals want to know the patient's details better. Net all comes down to one thing. They all want to give better products and better services to their customers. And how do you do that? And one of the ways in which you can do that is to go and figure out all the data that you have about your customers and all that is lying outside. And that's one of the key use cases of how big data can really help in the market today. So there are multiple forces that is really impacting the business today, and we're talking about businesses becoming smart in some sense. There's this onslaught of mobility, right? All of us don't go anywhere without a mobile phone today, right? It is impacting the way we do business today. It's impacting the way we work. It's impacting the way we are operating. And we all agree there's a huge amount of data that's coming up. There's this problem of big data and analytics. And that has an implication on social. Now, we are all this open society, and we express our likes, our dislikes, our pictures. Everything's up there in the social platforms. And again, cloud is something that we all know about, right? It's the underlying technology which is making computing power which is easily available to businesses. Now, these are just some of the forces in the market today. And how are these forces really impacting businesses? These forces are making businesses become more client-centric today. Every business wants to know its clients better than how it knew earlier. Every business wants to look at data completely, all the data. It's not just about what you know, it's all about what you don't know. It's no longer fighting data, but it wants to embrace data in all its forms. There's also a way in which you embrace this for a deeper relationship with clients and your employees. It's just not about your clients alone. You're using data to understand your employees better, to build better relationships with them. The deeper the relationships you have with them, the better is the business results. And of course, there's this constant changes, technology changes, market changes, everything that's influencing the companies. So how does all this impact, right? So let's summarize some of the elements that we spoke about so far. We speak data being the new natural resource, data is the new oil. Okay, you have all the data in the world. What do you do with the data if you don't really use the data for understanding your clients better. This data is helping companies empower everyone. Decision making is no longer restricted to the top management alone. You could be an entry-level employee in your company. This whole onslaught of big data and analytics is making people take better decisions. An entry-level employee, with the reports that he has, he's able to take a decision. And at the end of the day, all of us are trying to add value to the organization. No matter who you are, you're a seller, you're a phone banker, or you're a retail store operator. All of us are trying to add more value to business. And what the whole onslaught of big data analytics is doing today is that it's helping you increase your value. It's helping you do your job better. It's helping you helping your company do better, helping your whole segment do better. Now, yeah, this is probably something which you've heard probably 5 times since morning. For the benefit of those who missed it or probably who don't know these things, I'm just going to quickly run through this. We have this problem of scales. Data is coming in huge scales. We have a problem not just in scale, but we have a problem integrating the data, right? So data is coming in multiple sources, so you need to integrate all the data. And then you have a problem of variety, right? Variety is in terms of structure, comes in multiple structures. You have tweets, you have some Facebook posts, you have some pictures coming in. Now, if it's only about that, it's a very small problem to handle. But the bigger problem today is all about velocity. It's not about the structured data or unstructured data, right? So it's about the speed in which this data is coming today. Now, this is like the movie Matrix, right? You have Keanu Reeves there, and he's trying to fight all the bad guys, and suddenly the camera stops, the bullet stops. The camera pans around, looks at all the factors, and then the camera comes back, and he can take a decision on how does he want to react. It's like stopping time. What value velocity brings into this is it helps you stop time, takes a decision, and then go back to time. That's the key thing about velocity coming in. Okay, fine, you have all the data, you know how to manage it, you have the capability of doing it, but what's the point in doing it if you don't understand, you don't trust the data? Most reports say today that 80% of the data today is not trustable, all right? I can go write a blog about something, you can go post a picture of somebody else and say that is Sushmita Sen, but what is the certainty in that? So that's where the element of uncertainty that really comes into the market. So what does big data really do about this? What big data analytics really brings to the table is that it has an ability to add value at every point of interaction in your company, right? Now we have this whole concept of front office, transformation, right? Right from mobile commerce, you're a banking customer, you do mobile banking on your phone, you call the telephone banking call center. So there's so much of data that's available there. The businesses can analyze that data to understand your customer engagements better. Now, there's the systems of records. Now, computing has become so cheap today that every single device in your house or every single device in your company has a capability of recording data about you. Now, this could be as big as power grids, or it could be as simple as just mobile phones, where telco companies are recording your locational data. Now, these systems of records is again being used by big data and analytics to understand the customer better. And then there's the systems of engagement. When I talk about systems of engagement, I mean that there are no longer these isolated systems. ERPs don't run separately, CRMs don't run separately. You don't have any other let's say net banking application running separately of core banking. All these are integrated. So when I say the role of big data analytics, it's about adding value in every point of interaction that you have with your clients and your internal teams. So what is IBM really doing about this? What is that your clients are doing about it? Now, these are some of the key clients in India. We're not really talking about the clients outside of India, but these are clients in India who are leveraging big data analytics in a manner in which the business is really benefiting. This is a recent case. This is the Bangalore Water Supply and Sewage Board. Now, Bangalore as a city has been really, really growing. Their population was at about 5.4 million, say about a decade ago. They're about 10 million now. And this body supplies water for the entire Bangalore city. So they were under tremendous pressure. They were not able to monitor what is happening to the water. They were not able to monitor the records from the water meters. So they worked with IBM. And today they are able to monitor at least 30% of any records they have. So At any point in time, there's a real-time data available in the dashboard of a guy who manages this whole water management system for him to understand. But Infratel, it's one of the largest infrastructure providers for telco companies in India. And they're probably the pioneers of this whole concept of passive infrastructure sharing. So they have this huge setup of 33,000 mobile towers. And there's huge amount of effort that goes into maintaining and managing these towers. Now we are talking about 60 to 70% of their budgets and time efforts goes into managing those towers. Now what do? They partnered with somebody like IBM, wherein they were able to monitor real-time data from mobile towers, which helped them to predict maintenance requirement and things like that, which brought down that 60 to 70% efforts they put in. Now, Jet Airways is something that we all know about. Now, Jet Airways has probably a market share of about 30% in India, probably the biggest or second biggest airline company in India. But when they entered the European Union, they had a problem with emission trading. European Union has a very, very strong compliance around emissions. And if you don't comply by that, you're fined heavily. So they needed to understand how much of emission are they doing on a daily basis, how much is the emission that every plane is doing for them to work on buying carbon credits. So they worked on a big data application, on a solution on monitoring data from flights, every single flight, and flights produce huge amount of data, believe me. And they were able to reduce their whole effort by 75% in terms of the time that takes for them to comply to the European Union's requirements. Birla Sun Life is again a familiar name for most of us. So they wanted to be a leading insurance provider. They wanted to understand the customers better. So what did they do? They went back to the records, the forms that they have of clients. They went and studied what sort of clients are buying what sort of insurance policies. And they were able to design better insurance policies, better offers for their clients. And they were able to save something around $170 million in savings on data management costs. And here's another industry, completely non-related to all of this. Ultratech Cement, part of the Aditya Birla Group. So the cement industry has a very peculiar issue. They spend a lot of time in understanding what is the right mixture that goes for cement. When they manufacture cement, a lot of raw materials that goes into it. So they need to understand what is the right combination. They need to understand how much of power is required for them to manufacture cement. So what they did, they again worked on a real-time solution. The managers who are responsible for cement manufacturing are now able to monitor all the data related to raw materials as well as the power consumption for them to save almost 50% in planning production. Now here comes the most important example. Your company, you could be a startup, you could be a business leader. Your company could be one of those companies which is really doing innovative work on big data. But are you really thinking about it? I mean, are you thinking you're too small a company, or you're thinking that your company has no relevance when it comes to big data and analytics? So let's say, why do companies think they should act now? Why are companies really getting about big data and analytics? 75% of them say they want to grow, they want to beat competition. That's the primary reason they want to look at data, and they want to leverage all the data that they have. And what is it they can do? Data becomes a speed differentiator, right? The more data that you have, faster your decision making, and you can actually put a money value to data. If you know about a customer before your competitor knows, there's more profitability for you. And they want to be not just right, they want to be more right and more often. The second concern that we see is about compliance. Now, even today, in the papers today, I'm not sure if you read it, there's this, I'm not sure I'm actually branding them in the wrong sense, but there's a shop in Ampamal called Star Bazaar. And this guy was smart enough in collecting all the chip data, from your credit cards. You go and swipe your credit card. He had a machine which recorded all the data about your credit card, your PIN numbers, and he was doing it for 2-3 months, and he swindled a lot of money. So there is so much of risk involved. A credit card company is probably in a soup right now because they've lost a lot of money, and I think HDFC Bank was involved somewhere there. So most businesses want to protect themselves against risk. They want to protect the data that they have about the customers. They want to protect your privacy norms, right? And there's also a concern of risk and opportunity question. How much of risk can they take to grow their business? That's again another concern which is making people look at data differently. And this is a problem, right? Now, IT doesn't agree to this most times. There's only 1 in 5 companies believes that 50% or more of their IT investments goes for new projects. They're still worried about looking at the rear view mirror and driving, right? They're not looking at what is really happening ahead of them. They're looking at going and maintaining the systems. And talking about looking at the rear view mirror and driving, I banged my car on the way coming, into the auditorium. I was looking at the rear view mirror, not looking at what is happening in the front, and I banged my car in the lorry. And you can probably extend that to a business sense. So we spoke about what's really happening in the market. We spoke about the need to look at big data. We spoke about what is making companies look at big data. But what really makes you successful when you really look at big data? What IBM did is that we spoke to a lot of organizations which were involved in big data projects, and they came with multiple reasons which made them successful. And we put them into multiple buckets, 3 buckets. It all boils down to this. They say you need to build a culture that infuses analytics everywhere. So analytics is just not about a bunch of techies trying to understand the data better, giving a better report to your business. Analytics is not just about having a chief data officer or a data scientist taking an analytics decision better. It's about having a culture of evidence-based decision making, a culture of curiosity where everybody who's involved in the company is trying to understand the data or a transaction better, and it's a cultural change, it's not just a technology change. Second, you need to have a proper infrastructure. If your IT infrastructure is not ready to handle this change, if your IT infrastructure cannot handle these multiple forms of data, there's no point in you having a cultural change alone. And finally, it's just not enough about a cultural change. It's not just enough about having an infrastructure. It's all about having trust in your data. It's all about having an environment which will be protective about privacy, security, and governance norms. Let's look at the first part of it. How do you change people? That's probably the biggest problem that companies are facing today. Some of the reports say that in US alone, there's a growth of 20% in terms of needs for data scientists or analytics-related jobs. Now, that translates to about 140,000 or 190,000 new jobs that's happening in the US market. And now, this is not restricted to the US alone. Now, just go to LinkedIn. The other day, I was very curious, and I typed data scientist or chief data officer. I was surprised in Chennai, there were some 70, 80 jobs available for taking. Now, so companies are thinking about it. Skills are not there, right? There aren't enough skills. There are companies like IBM or, for the matter, the rest of the technology vendors mentioned here. They are working with academia, with corporates in terms of building skills. So that's going to be a big challenge, and that is resulting in terms of changes in roles. To give you an analogy, a company like IBM used to go and sell to the CIO of a company most of the time. Most of our sellers will go and talk to an IT manager or DGM IT, but things are changing today. We are being asked to go and speak to a CMO. We're being asked to talk to a sales leader. We've been asked to talk to a product leader. We've been asked to talk to a CHRO. So in that sense, there's a shift in focus. It's just not about selling IT to an IT guy. It's about business leaders getting involved in it. And the third dimension about is there are some companies who have already mastered it, right? I'm not sure if you've heard of this company called Westfield Insurance. This is a Ohio-based insurance company. These guys claim 40% of their employees on a daily basis come to office, work on some sort of an analytics tool, and 80% of the employees consume that reports or some insights that's come from it, and 95% of their employees say their jobs have become better because they understand that better. So what does this really happen? How does that impact happen? How does one say that 95% of a company staff believes that analytics has made their jobs better? Now, this can apply to anything. It applies to the entire underbelly of a business. You create new business models. You have an opportunity to grow customers. You have an opportunity of making improve your IT economics. You can manage risk. You can manage your operations and transform financial processes. So these are some of the areas where a change in thinking makes a change. Now, this applies to all the industries, right? Now, irrespective of which industry that you're working in, irrespective of which industry the company that you're working in is providing solutions, there is a use case that's available, right? Now, look at something like an insurance company. They want to look at a 360-degree view of a customer. Now, look at something like an automotive or a transportation sector. They're looking at predictive maintenance of their cars or trucks that they have. It's just not about ERPs or just not about supply chain management anymore, but they are looking at how do I solve business problems today. Now, government is again a huge use case. We're looking at defense systems. We're looking at making your civilian services better. So there is use cases all across the industry. Now, we spoke about people. We spoke about imagining. We spoke about changing a culture. But then that leads to an infrastructure problem. Do I have an infrastructure that can handle data in motion, that can handle data in rest, that can handle structured data, that can handle unstructured data? So you need to have an infrastructure which is going to help you make more right more often. And it's just analytics just not about giving a report at the end of the year for your business leaders to review. Analytics on this data helps you understand what's really happening, why is it happening, what could be happening, and what should be the next action. Now, we don't stop at that. Now, these questions have been asked for probably the last 4 or 5 years by various technology vendors. What's new here is this whole story of cognitive fabric. What is cognitive? I'm just going to cough once, my apologies. Sorry, a bit under the weather. So, cognitive systems are learning systems. It's just not about understanding what is the business doing. It's not understanding how is the business doing. It's not understanding why is the business doing. It's not just about understanding what will the business do. The question is, have I learned something today? There is something happening today. Is a system learning today? And that's where the whole story of cognitive intelligence comes into play. Now, IBM is taking cognitive intelligence very seriously, applying it to various industries. The name in which most of you might know this story is the whole Jeopardy game that happened in the US where a computer was able to beat a guy. So IBM is trying to take the learnings from that into real life. There's a lot of use cases that's happening around healthcare, at least right now. So when you look at an architecture for handling big data in your organization, you be an IT person or you be a business person, this is something that's going to interest you. So you have data that's coming in multiple forms. You have transactional data, you have some machine data, you have some text data, and you have some video files, you have some tweets and messages and emails, and you have rest of the other data. Now, the architecture that you're looking at should be able to ingest information from all these sources into an information zone, right? Now, you could look at a simple information integration story there, multiple data sources brought into one source, and then it puts them into different landing zones. Now, here's where your whole story of real-time analytics goes. Any data that is time sensitive goes into a real-time zone, and any data that is probably not time sensitive, which is data in rest, goes into an exploration zone. So you basically have data in motion and you have a data in rest, and then you have data going into your enterprise warehouse. And on top of this is your whole governance story. So it's just not about analyzing your data. It's just not about doing real-time analytics or analytics from your data warehouse. It's all about governing your data. Are you really keeping your data safe? Are you looking at master data management? Are you looking at data quality and all those other elements? Now, this is on top of it comes your the whole analytics piece of it, right? Now, to help you understand this better, I'm just going to probably show about 2 or 3 transactions. Now, you look at a financial process. So, a financial process is the data about the financial process comes from a transaction or from some machine data or from text. It goes into an enterprise data warehouse and it goes into reporting and analytics, right? Similarly, if you look at an unstructured data, right? You have a customer who's going and tweeting about you, who's putting a video about you. It goes into a layer where you have this whole Hadoop story coming in and the IBM tools for Hadoop coming into that, and then it goes into a mode where you're trying to understand why did it happen? Why did the customer post something about me? How can I discover and extract more information from it? And finally comes the most interesting part of it. Now, you're looking at real-time analytics, right? So you have a machine data, you have some sensor which has sent you some data. You move it to a real-time analytics zone, and it tells you what is likely to happen tomorrow, right? Just to give you an example here, real-time analytics is something where every business house is interested today. Give you a couple of examples. There's a hospital called Neonatal Hospital in Toronto in Canada. Now, what do they specialize in? They specialize in treating newborn babies, right? Neonatal. So they had this use case about premature babies. So this hospital collected information about premature babies. There's a lot of readings that's going from the premature baby, and they were able to predict what diseases or what ailments is likely to hit the baby in the next month or next week or the next day. What really helps is it's just not about technology anymore. It's about saving a life. You're predicting a disease which is likely to hit you, and you're saving lives. Now, another example, just going back on all the unstructured data. Now, Vestas is probably a popular name for all of us. Now, of all the data, the weather data is probably the most complex one. And if you've been somebody who's got interest in sailing or going in the ship, you'll understand that you can never predict wind. You can never predict which direction wind is going, right? Or if you're somebody who's been flying kites at home, you'll understand you can never predict if your kite is going to fly high. What Vestas did, they were able to collect information, weather information, right? And they were able to give it to their customers. What do? They were in the business of having these windmills and helping customers generate renewable energy. If you're somebody who wants to learn more about this technology, you're a technology practitioner, how do you learn more about it? So these are some of the resources that are available to you today. Now, I'm probably going to start from a bottom-down perspective. The whole story of online resources, there's an IBM Big Data Hub, which has got all the content that you want available free of cost for you to learn. There's a Big Data University where you can go and learn. I've been spending a lot of money and time with academia, helping students learn this whole story of big data analytics better, know the products. We have solution centers all across the world. We have one in India, which is not shown in the map, where clients can come in and do proof of technologies and understand. And this is probably where IBM differentiates itself, right? We've probably had 30,000 engagements on big data already, and there are about 9,000 consultants across the world. This was a slide meant for startups. I thought there were going to be startups here today. So I'm going to end with this. Now, irrespective of where you are, irrespective of what jobs you do today, these are some questions you need to ask yourselves to leverage this whole concept of big data and analytics, right? Are you playing a role in unleashing your company's creativity? Are you doing things differently? Are you using data differently? Are you looking at data differently? Do you have an architecture which is ready to look at data differently, or is it just about a typical same IT architecture? It's not about an old wine and new skin. Finally, are you protecting your data? Right. So this is the IBM point of view. Thank you so much for listening.